Good morning. Today's question: does God intentionally make your life difficult so that you can prove your obedience to Him, faithfulness to Him, loyalty to Him? What about temptations and trials? Let's talk about that. So today, that's what we're going to chew up. Like, does God actually tempt and try you? Or is there something more to it that we're not understanding? That's what we do here at Leaning In with Ann. This is a walk and talk that I do every weekday morning. And we sort through questions like this and the way that the brain puts things together. Listen to this. Ready? Lead us not into temptation. Woo, Lord's Prayer. And our brain does a certain thing about that, but the language is actually twisted. So in Leaning In with Ann, this walk and talk, that's what we do. We take normal things, questions, ideas, thoughts, and we evaluate. We get it straight so that we can communicate better. We can talk with each other. We cannot act out of misperception, really. So, welcome. I'm Ann Ferguson. And today, I've got so much in my brain about this. Does God tempt us and try us? Is that Him or is that Lucifer? Now, a lot of you can go, well, that's Lucifer. That's really easy, or Satan. It's really easy to say. But why is the question even there? Like, what is this question about? And it's about the relationship that we have with God and God has with us. That's where this question is coming up. It also has to do with our earth life, why we're here, what we're doing, how this whole thing plays out. That one question, does God tempt us and try us, is so loaded with so much yumminess to chew up. So first, as I was contemplating this, I'm like, where do we get that? Where do we get that? That God might lead us into temptation. Oh, that's where we get it. The Lord's Prayer. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. That would say, without further research, that God does lead us into temptation. Now we got to go back out and go, what is temptation really? What does that mean? So, first of all, let's establish, I've been doing this lately, so if you've been watching me, you know, we're going to pick this apart, we're going to put it in context. The Bible dictionary totally changed me when I read that repentance is a change of mind. That's repentance. So repentance reverses sin. It gives it to God so that He can fix the things. So that means that the root of sin is misperception. Okay. So what is temptation? This is how I study, just so you know. I look at words that I think I know, and I look them up in the 1828 dictionary. There's a reason for that. It's because some of the further explanations of scriptures, and so I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I am practicing and I am different because I challenge things all the time, and I question and I wonder and I ponder, and I feel absolutely no guilt about going, nope, that actually isn't what it means. And so I'm not going to act out of that. So I'm different. And part of that is the 1828 dictionary is the definitions that early church founders, Joseph Smith and others, would have understood those definitions. And so our theology, the way that we think about certain words, are absolutely developed by how people have spoken, how your grandparents expressed it, how your parents taught you, and so it becomes just like a kind of muddy misperception, quite frankly, about things. So I looked up temptation, and then I listened to a scholar that I really, really love talking about how temptation is bait. It's enticement. It's kind of trickery. So, what is it trying to trick us to do? Think something, have a misperception about it. So I want you to put shoulder angels on, right? We got a shoulder angel over here. We got a minion over here. Something happens, and you'll hear the angel go, oh, handle it this way. This is what it means. And then you got this other side and go, this is what it means. And whoever we adopt as true, whatever thought we take in and go, oh, that's the thought. I agree with that. That becomes belief. Now, we act upon that belief, and what we most often talk about as sin is actually the behaviors that come from acting out of belief. So the temptation is literally that voice that is trying to entice us away from that which is good and supportive and gonna help us. Help us do what? See, that's how my brain works. Help us ascend. Help us not be just human. Help us step into who we are as divine beings. That's where the trials come in. We're going to get to that in a minute, but let's just go with the temptation for a minute. So you know that lead me not into temptation, or lead us not into temptation? If you actually look on the footnotes as you're reading, every once in a while I'll do that too, it says that it actually, the meaning of that is, do not allow us to be led into temptation. Don't allow us to be led into temptation. Wow. So let's go with fish. If the bait is out there, don't allow us to be led into temptation. It's an interesting thing because from the scholar that I was listening to, Jared Halverson, so good, was talking about fish. When fish are already fed and they're full and they're not hungry, it doesn't matter what bait is on the hook, they actually don't take it. And isn't there something about give us our daily bread in the Lord's Prayer too? Fill us up so that it's not even enticing, that we look at it and go, no, that's actually not for me. I don't want that. How do we fill up? We keep the scriptures in our minds. We feast. Look at that. We feast upon the word of Christ. That is not to prove obedience, by the way. That is not to say, hey, I did my spiritual chores of reading my scriptures so that you can now bless me. It's not like spiritual chores, give me my allowance thing. It's feast and be full. Because when you're full, then what happens is when there's enticements, you're like, I'm actually full, I don't need that. No, that's, it's so much easier to go, yeah, no, it's not something I want to participate in. And I'm talking about the whole gamut of little teeny tiny things and great big things. Like when I have actually not been eating sugar, when I have been doing the other things that help me not have sugar cravings, then when I'm presented with something that's high sugar, kind of looks gross to me, right? It's not the best for my body, and it's so easy to say no. When I am super hungry and I don't have enough energy and I'm tired and something sugary is placed in my way, am I full? No. Is the sugar the go? Yeah, because it's going to give me my quick fix. That temptation, that enticement is there. Why is sugar for me an enticement? Because it actually fuzzes out my brain and I get brain fog and then I don't write and then I just lay around and it kind of charges me up for a second, but then I need more and I get into a cycle and pretty soon it's caffeine too. There's all sorts of things that take me away from being able to feel, this is what caffeine does to me, feel how much God loves me. Not that I don't question it in my brain, I know, but the feeling of being loved and supported, that kind of goes away when I've had caffeine. It's fascinating how everything connects. So temptation is enticement. And when we're full with bread, daily bread, that could be, listen to music that uplifts you. That could be, what's your mind diet, I guess? What's the mind diet? Are you filling your mind with things that cause your body to respond with a lot of adrenaline and cortisol? Or are you feeding your mind with the things that helps your nervous system feel like you're safe and everything's okay? Because what we're full of, adrenaline is just like that, right? It's this huge shot, and then you need more of it later to keep going. So my thoughts are, if I have my mind diet set up, then I can be full, and then it's easy for God to do what? Not let temptation let me be led into temptation. I can hear the voice of the Spirit a lot better. So, let's go back to the question. Does God tempt us? I'm going to say big fat no to that. Now, if we choose not to let God walk with us, and there's a lot of reasons for that. We can feel unworthy. We can feel like we haven't done enough. We can feel like we sinned yesterday, so, that's all worldly, earthly parenting kind of stuff. Like you didn't do this, so you're grounded, or you're not allowed to play because of this. All of those kind of things isn't God. So he actually isn't leading me into temptation. What's happening is if I'm doing all the things that actually take me away from God, like I'm listening to more of those temptations, then because of my choice, not just the action, but my choice in what to believe. When I believe something, I'm fully executing choice. I've chosen this or that. Choice. If I've chosen not to have the Spirit nudging me and helping me, then the Spirit will not help me. And it's like, I'm going to not lead you into temptation. I can't save you if you don't want my help. I can't speak really loud if you've done the things that are numbing my voice and the feeling of me in your body. So it's not that he's leading us into temptation, but he can't prevent us from experiencing that because we're choosing not to have spiritual warriors by us. So, no. God, the Father, Jesus Christ, and even the Holy Ghost, they do not tempt us. They cannot tempt us to do things that aren't going to be a part of our divinity. They can't. Now, they can step back because of our choice and allow us to experience more intense temptations versus fighting it off for us. It all depends on what you choose. Now, here's the thing about worthiness. Worthiness to me is the willingness to be influenced by the Spirit. The minute you are willing to be influenced by the Spirit, you're worthy of the Spirit's influence. So, I can do this alone, thinking that I'm really cool as a human. Or I can understand that I am a daughter of a celestial being who really loves and supports me. And I may not even understand what that means, but I'm willing to discover and have a relationship and find out. Now we're going to get into the trial. And there is a trial of my faith. Okay. We think of trials when we hear the trial of your faith. We think of actual tribulation, which is different than trial. We think of trial as being negative. it's a bad thing. It's all of the heartache and all of the really yucky stuff, right? The hardship, the difficulty are the trials. But is that true? Because when I looked in the 1820 dictionary, I also saw that trial means experiment, like a clinical trial. What? Or checking out all the evidence and coming to a conclusion, like a trial in court. So, trials, does God give us trials? I don't believe that's true. I believe that we experience trials, and I think I'm going to go into this. Haven't done this for a while. I'd love for you to understand. I have heard, that we agreed to all of the yuck before we came to this earth, even though we didn't know exactly what we were experiencing. It was likened to, I agreed to do labor because I was wanting to have a baby, going through the pain of that, even though I didn't know what that was, that kind of thing. I believe that there's more to that. God cannot violate our freedom of choice, ever. He cannot. And that includes when we were up there with him prior to coming down here, and there was this plan that was laid out, and we said, yeah, I want to go down to the earth. I want to do this thing. God says, hey, sweetie, come here. Let's talk about what you want to do. Spreading out everything that's going to happen in the entire history of the world. Here's all of the cultures, all of the events, all of the things as we bring this beautiful thing that I've created for you all into a celestial place. It's got to go through some processes, and so do you. But my question for you, my dear Anne, and everybody else who's on here, think about this. What would you love when you're there? See, he can't violate choice. So he couldn't even say to Christ, you're the one that's going to suffer and die. I choose you. He says, here's the plan. Who will do this? And Christ stood up and said, I will. His will. What? So we get to have this choice. What will we experience? Not just the yuck, guys. Not just the yuck. I would love to experience being on the earth at the end of times. I want to walk people into relationship with the Savior. That's what I want to do. Because, somebody else could say, I just want to come down, get a body, and leave. And work this whole thing out with Christ. And what he did in the millennial reign. There's 1,000 years without Satan running around amok. And so I kind of want to know about Christ there. Every knee's going to bow, every tongue confess. We're all going to know that it's him. I want to come down for just a little bit, and then I want to go home. And I want to fight the big evil for my loved ones on this side of the veil. That's possible. What would you love, Anne? So I chose this. He says, okay, daytime, family, circumstances you're born into, this will give us the best shot for your original will. Your heart's desire is my desire, my lovely. As we've just worked this out, I'm going to hold vision for you of this. And I will always be nudging you towards it. Now, this is where choice comes in. Ready? This is where temptation and trial comes in. Listen up. I can never violate freedom of choice. I cease to be God if I do. You're going to get down to this really cool earth experience, and there are going to be things that are presented that either we didn't consider, or that you kind of want to go, yeah, but maybe I do want to experience that. And you are free. That's one of the things. You didn't choose your other brother's plan. He wouldn't have the freedom to explore, but I give you the powers of creation to explore your life. So, however you want to do this, I will be there for you. And if you step off a trajectory of what we have just discussed, you're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel like it's not quite right. You're going to not be comfortable in your own skin. You're going to be searching and searching and searching for who you are, what you love, and the peace that is only when you are completely aligned with me and you and what we discuss. That's what I'm going to do for you. So here comes the trial, guys. I cannot violate anybody else's choice. There's going to be times in your life where you are doing a thing and somebody else is going to step off of their trajectory. They're going to not be sitting in the space that is going to best serve them. And when that happens, by the way, is that pain exists. So when somebody else steps off trajectory, it's going to become a trial, possibly, for you. And what that means is there's going to be yuck, and there's going to be pain, and your brother said that he will clean up that too. So the trial is, are you willing, honey, to lean into every nudge I give you? We're just going to experiment, because the more that you do that, the more you're going to go, oh my gosh, that was a trial, that was a thing, and years ago that would have completely rocked me. But because I have gotten some spiritual strength, knowledge, understanding, and correct perception, that actually doesn't hit me the same way. Now there's more, right? Even Christ himself got tempted. Correct? Christ was tempted. He wasn't enticed. And I love what happened for him. Do you realize he had spent 40 days learning about himself and God, the Father, and who he was and his mission? And he spent telling the body, no, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm just going to sit in my spirit. That he was prepared to meet. God the Father prepared him to meet that ultimate tempter. And he kept saying, here, if this is true, do this. He was trying to give him misperception about who he was. If you're really the Son of God, do this, because it's not going to matter. Angels are going to help you, just do this. And I love how he says, don't tempt me. I'm not going to be enticed. I'm not going to take that bait. But the trials of others not having perception of who he was, what he was there for, how he was responding. He was acting in a way that was completely different than the structure of the Jews. He was going completely against convention. And he had this really grounded understanding about who he was and who God was. And so they didn't understand it. They didn't understand. Right? So they judged him, and he had trials because of others' freedom of choice. Isn't that interesting that he actually was physically hungry at the time of the bait? Physically hungry, spiritually fed. That's the goal. Spiritually fed, spiritually full. Right? So, trials, we want to separate it out, trying it all. Try all. How do I want to respond to this situation? Now, there are trials, by the way, that are not driven by someone else's choice. Physical experiences and trials that we look on as trials, and pain and suffering, and physical pain and suffering, can be choice. The spirit can be nudging, no, hon. Don't have that, because genetically it's going to change the structure of the molecules in your body, and you're going to have gout. So that's going to be really painful. And all I'm going to tell you right now is, don't drink the alcohol. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. No, you don't need the beer. Because the people that are telling you what you can see down the road. So there are physical ailments that we have by habit done that changes the structure, right? There are people that are born into a physical situation that means that what they do on this earth isn't as easy and they need other people's love and support and help in order to live out a life here. That, I totally believe, was their choice. There was this kid that I knew. His dad was a chiropractor, and I loved the man. And he was kind of pompous and arrogant. He was very affluent in this little town, and in the congregation that I had, there were a lot of people that were not affluent. And he was, and he kind of wore that a little bit in pride. And he wasn't horrible. I just could sense it, right? He had this autistic son who had just enough verbal that he would shout out things in the middle of church, like, are we done yet? Can we go home? If we just bring him for 15, 20 minutes or so. I don't think he stayed for the whole meeting. But he couldn't actually be perfect. The father could not actually be perfect and have everything together because he had this son who came into a body where the wires in the brain were not wired the same as most humans. And I believe he came to teach, to help his dad, honestly, to teach humility and acceptance and tolerance and unconditional love. So sometimes the things that we're born into, we can look at if that's their trial, but what if it's not? What about the mom who gives birth to one of that? It's like a trial, right? It feels like so heavy and everything. Has there been agreement? In that kind of situation, I believe that there was agreement. And I will be the one to live my life in support of you. That is true. One of the big things about trials is that we feel there's an underlying subconscious thing that says that we've got to experience trials in order to be valiant. And that is not true. Trials come. Pain in this world, physical, emotional, even spiritual pain, is universal. It's kind of like the sun. It doesn't matter who you are, what level of misperception and behaviors you have partaken in. It's out there. And if you want to experience its vibrational energy, feel it, feel rejuvenated by it, get vitamin D from it, let my body do a thing, it's always available. And even when it's cloudy, there's light, right? That's universal. So is pain. None of us escape it. It's all just part of this condition. Why? Because our spirits are tuned to a much higher vibration than what is here. And so when we experience the lower vibrations of life and the things that are going on, we buzz, and it's uncomfortable in our physical frame because it's not where our spirits are. That's why our spirits are always craving good. We're craving relief. We're craving love. We crave belonging and connection. We're just craving heaven, quite frankly. We're just craving heaven. Because in heaven, we are loved, we're accepted, we're tolerated. When we're in the presence of God, we are known, we are seen, we are understood. When we're in His presence, we feel that belonging. So we're always actually kind of searching for that. And when it's not there, we have pain. That is yes. But guess what is not yes? Suffering. There is physical suffering that people experience. That is true. But there is also a suffering that we do to make life the hardest way possible in order to prove that we deserve God's love or His blessing or whatever. I remember my when I was a little kid, we had this partition, a wall in between the front room and the kitchen, and my brothers would be in there with me, torturing me. I mean, literally sitting on my chest and pinning my arms down and tapping like this, making me name 10 candy bars, and I'd scream, and they'd play Queen Bee, and they'd smack my butt. They'd go bzzz, and then they'd smack me, And my mom never actually really responded to that. All the screaming, I would scream as loud as I could because, I wanted Mom to come in and rescue me. Mom, they're being mean to me. You know what I did? I endured it. I didn't have to be in that room. I could see the two in the room and go, actually, nope, and make a different choice. But what was interesting is that my mom, if I was down the street and I wrecked on my bike, man, she would be there in 30 seconds. She could hear me. She could hear me because that was actual pain. The other pain was at the hand of other people that I was willing to let beat me up, if you will. Choice. I think sometimes we hang on to our pain to prove to God that we deserve the love. That is not trials. That is us choosing the hardest way possible. Yesterday we talked about drama. We talked about having a bully. You have to have a hero, a victim, and a bad guy. And if you're willing to let go, love your enemies, doesn't condone them, but step out of the triangle and go, where do I fit in this and what choice can I make that is not going to continue all of this pain and suffering? That's you trying it on. That's a trial. And you can jump out of it at any time. So one of the best examples of this is a very real situation with a gentleman who I love with all of my heart. He was taking an Igniting Your Belief class, and he was learning about emotional regulation and connecting with his feelings, and it was so great. And his wife died of cancer while we were in class. He had 6 kids. And all of a sudden, that trial, if you will, that struggle, that non-ease of life was very real. He was grieving, and he had to somehow keep 6 humans alive. And he did not heap that upon himself, right? That is not something that he chose consciously in this world, is to be left. That wasn't... There's something else to that we don't understand, but he did not choose for his wife to die. So we had talked about this suffering versus pain and about enduring to the end. I'm going to talk about that really quickly, enduring to the end. And he was making toast. And he was just like having such a hard time. He was making some toast for his kids. And all of a sudden, the flip in his mind, the new perspective showed up. He flipped in his mind and he said, wait a minute, why is this hard? Making toast is not hard. Why is this hard? He realized he was enduring to the end. Friends, he had to go to the bathroom. And he was delaying that process in order to get the kids their stuff. And he went, oh my gosh, how many times do I actually push through a struggle or a thing that I can quickly resolve and then have an easier time? Like, how often do I choose hard? Guys, we choose hard all the time. What about easy? Let's break up with hard. I have a friend who talked about that one day, breaking up with hard. I love that phrase. This is what I've said. I can do hard things. I choose not to. And when I need to, I can dig in. I know how. But I choose not to do the hardest way possible. Do you think that in heaven, we're going to be running around just proving how hard it is and how valiant we are in the hardship? Or is the test of life really how much crap can you take and still be faithful? Because that's kind of what our subconscious mind thinks. How much suffering and loss and crap can I go through and show that I'm still valiant? That is such a dangerous thing to think. Because you get wiped out and you go, no, this church is too hard. It wasn't the church, it was you. Okay, so what about if the test of life isn't how much crap can you take and still be faithful? And instead, it's how long do you want to take the crap? How long do you want to sit in the pool, in the lake, trying to make yourself not take the bait when you're hungry? How long would you love to swim in that pool? Because the feast is on the shore. Everything you need. And it's easy. And it's light. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. Come, feast at my table. You will never hunger or thirst again. Come, let me show you how to do this. Easy. You don't have to keep proving your worth to me. I know who you are. You and I agreed to some really cool things as long as you're buried in self-deprecation. You can't do all that I need you to do. Okay, well, we've been taught that I have to feel bad about not being perfect, so I'm just going to keep feeling bad because that means I'm humble. And so that's what I'm doing, Lord. And he's like, no. The sledgehammer of doom is not humility. You're putting some trials on you, some suffering on you that isn't mine. And Satan's over there going, yeah, she is. Let's get her all wrapped up. And then we do I don't know how to get out. I now see that I continue to do things that make it hard on myself. And then Satan says, it's because you're your enemy. You are not your own enemy, my friends. There is one. And there's no more perfection that you need. The only thing you need is understanding who you are. You just need connection to a loving God who already loves you and accepts you. You can't actually do anything wrong. Every time you step away from his light, he's never gone. He's just right there and going, well, they're going to try this one out. And then they're going to see that actually they like it better this way. So hosts of heaven, sit still for a minute while they try this on their own. It's going to be so fun, right? When she lets us help her and it all goes really well, she's going to call it a miracle. It's going to be so fun. And all it is her choice to not do things the hardest way possible. So, we're going to wrap this up with a question again. What are your thoughts? Does God provide temptation? Does he give you trials? It's an interesting thing. Temptations, absolutely not. Give you trials, possibly, but not the suffering that we incur. The trials were agreed to. Is there trial? Yes, people make decisions, and it's hard. When we're all sitting in misperception about stuff, man, we're so human, we just suck with each other. And that can be really hard at times. So, did he cause somebody else to step off of their trajectory? He did not. Did he entice them to step off of their trajectory just to prove that they're worthy and they're faithful? He did not. Did they step off of trajectory and it's causing heartache for you? Yes. Absolute yes. That is true. Can he navigate you around every single pain that you have? Absolutely, because Christ is the healer of all pain. Do you believe that you're worth his healing? Or do you need to suffer more to prove how tough you are? He was the only one that was required to suffer at the level he did. He did that so that we, what? Don't have to suffer. You can choose to be really happy and joyful. You can choose to have a life where God is there. Does it still suck when humans are around? Yes. Can you have a different perception and not be led into misperception? Not allowed to even partake of it? Well, if I'm full of the Spirit and I'm asking for truth and light and understanding and pure knowledge all the time, I could be just really full. You know? It's kind of what you decide to eat. Last night, I sat for hours cutting those little strips I talked about yesterday. And I do not watch TV. I watched 4 movies yesterday. And every time me and Jada try to figure out a different movie, there'd be one. And I click it and it goes, Mom, I don't really think this is your vibe. Do you know how much I love that? He knows that my mind diet isn't that. My mind diet isn't that. I choose not to bring violence in. I choose not to have high levels of adrenaline because of thrillers and suspense. So that when I have an adrenaline rush, I can go, hey God, what are you warning me about right now? See, I stay in connection with him so that when my body does a thing, I know it's him. I don't feed it things that are not him. God has the spirit of fear and power and a sound mind. And so I choose daily to do the things that help me and my body have that mindset. And my life is really happy. And I've been through a lot of trial and pain over people's choices. And I fought through a lot of misperceptions where I go, God, this is what I was taught. It doesn't feel like it's you, but I don't know how not to think it. He goes, oh, you know what? I've been training professionals. I got people that can show you how to regulate your emotions and not let your subconscious mind really grab. And all that trauma that you experience, I've got some things for you to do, and my son's going to figure out the rest for you. So you're okay, sweetie. We can do this. Turn to him over and over and over. He's got you, I promise. A mind diet. Let's do it. Let's get a healthy mind diet. Because that's where happiness is. Because we have correct perception, we have light, we have truth, we have the ability not to succumb to temptation that's going to rock us. You just keep doing your mind diet. Keep asking what's the next step when people are stupid in front of you. Ask him to buffer the pain with the balm of Gilead so it's not as painful as it could be, because he's willing to do that too when people are really stupid. He's willing to help it be not as painful as it could be without him. Just keep turning to him. He loves you. If there's anything I could shout from the rooftops, he loves you. Will you allow him to love you? Will you allow the feeling of being loved by him in all of your imperfection? Everything you're doing wrong. Can you allow him to love you? Because then you become beloved. Because you're willing to be loved. That is your destiny. That is where the joy is. I am out. Have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you on Monday. If anybody has any questions, anything you would love me to chew up, will you please DM me? Just send me a message and go, okay, so I was thinking, so if you're in church and something doesn't sit right, can you write that down real quick? Send me a message and go, hey, will you be willing to chew this one up with us? I'm all in. Let's do it. All right? That's it, everybody. We'll see you later.